Hey guys, I'm back today with another project for a vintage girl. Today I'm going to be working with the Printer's Tray chipboard album, and I decided I was going to turn this album into an art journal. There's a few chipboard pages in it that I thought would just be a perfect substrate for art journal pages. So I'm going to be using some pieces from the Printer's Tray trinket set. I'm going to start with Elizabeth Craft Designs paper pad to add some funky texture without texture and colors to the background of these squares. Now, this was quite time consuming, but it was all worth it in the end. So I paged through the paper pad and picked out which images I liked and lined them up with the shapes of the trinket tray, of the printer tray, and then I outlined them, cut them out, and then I laid them out on one of the flat pieces of the tray in the order that I wanted them on the tray. I don't know how many times I'm going to say tray in this video. So I tried to keep them in order as best as possible. So after I had them all cut out, I went in and I'm just using my Distress ink and black soot and going around all the edges. There's some really bright colors on some of the papers, which I really liked because it brought a little bit of boldness to the otherwise dark and grungy, which I really, really love. You know that. But I thought it needed a little pop of color, but yet, so here I am grunging up the edges. So I'm going to go around, and plus I outlined the shapes with a white Jelly Roll pen, so I kind of had to cover that up. So now, in order to line them up right, I had to make sure they were in the right spot. So I put the top of the printer tray on top of the first page, and I'm tracing the shapes. I'm tracing the squares and the rectangles where the papers should go. Again, this was a little time consuming, and I'm sure if I would have just put a whole sheet on the background, on the back of this top page, it would have been so much easier, but who does it easy? Surely not me. So I'm going to lay down some double-sided adhesive. I thought I was going to be fancy and use 2 different sizes. I don't think I did. I think I just went all willy-nilly like with the thick boy. And I have all my pieces still lined up, where I thought they wanted to go on the right-hand side of me. And so I'm just going to peel the backing off the double-sided tape and pick up the pieces and try and line them up on my outlines. Some of them were, I don't know if I cut them wonky or if I traced them wonky. I don't know. Some of them lined up, some of them didn't, but that's okay because I'm going to fix that anyways. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to paper piece these all down. And I really actually ended up liking that every square has a different image. It has a different background. And some of the squares came from the same piece of paper. So they came from the same image, just different parts of the image. Some were from completely different pieces of paper. So I really, really liked that. I took my bone folder and just scraped them down, make sure that they were down nice and good. And then when I put that top over, that's when I realized that my measurements were a little off. So I'm just going to take a black marker, and I don't know why I grabbed my expensive Pitt pen. I could have used a freaking Sharpie. I could have used any marker, but no, I had to grab, one of the most expensive markers I have in my studio. And I'm just going around the edges and then going, going around the edges and coloring in between, basically covering up all the chipboard that's showing. Because then once I saw the darkness of the black on the edges, I was really, really liking it. So now that that's covered, I'm much happier with it. Then I'm just going to go in with my Old Faithful cheap black acrylic paint, and I'm going to cover both sides of, I'm going to call this the frame of the printer tray. I don't know if that's what it's called, but that's what we're going to call it. I'm going to cover the front and the back. Normally I wouldn't have covered the back, but because I wanted a little more dimension, because I thought that I was going to stick some pieces kind of like underneath the little compartments, and then it took on a completely different style. It took on a completely different thing of its own. I ended up not doing that anyways, but I still liked the dimension that I had with adding the foam tape. So this again took a lot of time because there's lots of skinny strips in here and little tiny spots for me to add foam tape. So I obviously didn't film it all because, who wants to sit around and watch me cutting teeny tiny strips of foam tape? So I got it all covered, taking off the backing, and I thought I was going to be brave and do 2 layers of foam tape, but those middle pieces were just way too skinny. There's no way I was going to be able to add a second layer and get it on there right without being able to see it. So yeah, 1 layer, that's all it was. So this was the most simplest part. I lined it up, smushed it down, and it was good to go. It was perfect. But I got that extra dimension that I was looking for. Excuse me. Then I'm just going to go around the edges with my Pitt pen again, just to cover up the brown. And then I'm going to grab a bunch of elements from the printer's tray trinket set. And you only see me popping out the gears, but I did end up popping out the dress form and the wings. Again, I thought this was going in a completely different direction. I actually painted something else to go on this, and I didn't put it on anyways. So this is the Gaggle of Gears set, and so I just grabbed a couple more gears from there. And of course I thought I was filming, and obviously I wasn't. So I had painted the dress form and the wings with the cheap black acrylic paint that I had out, and I had sprayed the gears, the chipboard gears, with my Tim Holtz Distress Oxide sprays. And now I'm just grunging them up because although they were pretty, they were soft and too pretty. They were not grungy enough for me. So I just took whatever leftover paint was on my work surface and grunged them up. And then this ginormous gear is from Retro Cafe Art, and same thing. Yeah, it's going to be one of those voiceovers. Always. Every time, it's been a while since I've done a voiceover. It's always one of those ones. Distress Oxide sprays. And then I use Ruby Red and Firebird waxes. Wow. Firebird waxes on the dress form and the wings. And again with the cheap black acrylic paint, just to grunge that up because it wasn't grungy enough for me. Although the red and the Firebird are a favorite combo of mine. it wasn't crunchy enough for me. So now it's time to adhere everything. And I'm using my trusty all-time favorite Beacon Fabri-Tac adhesive. I'm telling you, this adhesive is amazing. I use it for everything. Paper, chipboard, metal, flowers, fabric, cardboard, anything I'm trying to adhere, Fabri-Tac it is, always. So I'm just gonna start attaching everything. And again, I had a completely different idea when I started this chipboard album, and by the time I got to this stage, it took on a whole different form. So I just kind of went with it, and I'm just building up and, adding the gears where I think I would like them to be, and adding a little height to them. I kind of wanted to focus the main focal image to the middle of the album cover, because I still wanted to see all the goodness in the background. So I didn't want to cover too much of it up, so I added more height and dimension as opposed to spreading it out throughout the whole cover. Now I'm just going to go in with some, I believe these are Finnabair little like screw heads, just to add a little something to those gears. And then a couple more at the bottom. And then I had a little adhesive ooze out, so I'm just going to clean that up real quick. And then I'm going to go in with some Viva, a perler pen in black. And I wanted to add some like rivets to the whole frame of the outside of the piece to make it look a little more industrial, and make it look a little more metal, like it was built, put together. So I'm going to add these throughout, and then once they're dry, I'm going to go through, once they're hardened, I'm going to go through with my Finnabair wax and brushed iron. And don't ask me why. I took the tiniest paintbrush in the world, and I went through and I covered every single one of these drops, every single one of them. And then I got the bright idea to, I'm going to cover the whole edge, because I want it all to look like metal, which would have covered the dots anyways. So, hindsight. So I'm just going to take my finger and lightly go over the edges, which again would have covered those dots probably a lot better than that tiny paintbrush. So this will give it a little more of a metallic look. So yeah, again, hindsight, but it is what it is. Then when I'm done rubbing what I could with my fingers, I go in with a paintbrush because I've got fat sausage fingers and claws for nails and can't reach certain spots. So I have to go in with the paintbrush and get in the areas that I couldn't reach. But all in all, I'm super excited with how it came out. Again, like I said, it took on a completely different form than what I originally had in mind. But I'm glad. I'm happy with how it turned out. I originally had more yellows and reds that were going to go in it. And besides the background papers, there's no more yellows and reds. I don't even know what happened to them. I have no idea. So I'm going to be, like I said, I decided to, instead of making it an actual album, I'm going to use those blank pages and turn it into an art journal. It's been a while since I've art journaled, and Who doesn't need another art journal in their studio? It's not like I don't have 50 of them already. What's one more, you know? I could always use another one. So I have some silk, some raw silk, that I was going to use for a binding that I'm just putting through the holes. These do come, the albums do come with ring hooks, ring clips, but I wanted to tie in a little more of that red and yellow that I was missing, that I originally had in my head. I wanted to tie that back in, so I decided to use this silk that I had, and I just stripped it up and tied it up, and you know, that will give me a little more space, so I can make my journal pages as thick or as thin as I want to. If I want to make them super dimensional and chunky, I can. If not, you know, they can be thin. So that's that. Yeah, I'm super excited with how it came out, and I know it's been a while since I did a voiceover, so excuse my, you know, one of those voiceovers. And I miss you all, and yeah, it was good to be back, and thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. I'll see you soon. Bye.